I'm Dr. Bolin, and welcome to Molecules to Cells, fall semester of 2015. This first lecture is going to be delivered to you virtually, and I'll see you all next week. But I'm really excited to give you a snapshot of what the semester is going to be like before I get to meet with you all next week. So every class, I'll always have an announcement slide. This is really important. If you come to class late, or for some reason if you have to miss a class, all my PowerPoints will be uploaded onto Canvas. You should always look at this slide and make sure there's not a change to the syllabus or something important like everybody got a brand new car, or everybody got 100% on their test. Something that is pertinent to the class you need to make sure you knew if you couldn't come to class. So the announcements for this lecture are welcome to Bio 201. You need to log on to Canvas as soon as possible. If you're watching this video, congratulations, you've already done it. The PowerPoint's uploaded there as well. You make me a really happy cat. There's no class this Friday, the 4th of September, but you're responsible for completing an assignment. It's called Questions to Think About, Chapter 1. The assignment is uploaded onto Canvas, and you need to have it done by the 9th of September, so that's next Wednesday's class. So in this little mini lecture I'm giving you today, I really just want to talk about the themes of the course. The themes of the course for Bio 201, Molecules to Cells. What you're expected to do at home is read chapters 1 and 2 out of your textbook, complete the assignment that's due on the 9th of September, that Questions to Think About Chapter 1, and download and start working on also Questions to Think About Chapter 2, because that's where we're going to dive in very quickly next week. Okay, so let's just dive into it. What we're going to do is approach this class from the place of identifying life at the cellular and molecular level. So let's just start looking at all these different forms of life. Everything up here in these 5 photos are all forms of life. Up over here in the left-hand corner, this is going to be a very close friend of yours. This is a tetrahymena. Tetrahymena are single-celled protists, so if they're from the kingdom Protozoa, eukaryotic organisms. They live in pond water. They're similar to a paramecium. They have all these little cilia, and they swim around. You guys are going to see these in the microscope. The cell structure of this little microscopic microorganism is similar in a lot of ways to us larger ordered animal species. They have a nucleus, they have a membrane. This is a eukaryotic cell. It's a single-celled microorganism. So all of these on the top, this tetrahymena, this pitcher plant, and this star-nosed mole, all have that same type of cell, eukaryotic cells. But look how different it is. You cannot define all of life even just based on what sort of cell type they have. This is a carnivorous plant. Water collects in here and flies, and all sorts of bugs get dropped in, and they are enzymatically broken down by the pitcher plant. The star-nosed mole doesn't see very well, but has this amazing mechanoreception up by its nose that allows it to move around and identify things in its environment. And we'll also talk about even more diversity in super microscopic organisms. So thinking of something like Staphylococcus bacterium, or looking at an E. coli bacterium. So even at the microscopic level, you can see how diverse these 2 life forms are. There's got to be a lot of different ways we describe life and understand how they organize their systems in order to account for all the diversity we see in our environment. So this is how we're going to approach this in Molecules to Cells. We're going to have 7 main themes for this course. Cells are the fundamental units of organisms. We'll learn about both eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Cellular structure suits cellular function. There is a reason the cell has the structure it does. It helps it to do its job. Molecules are the building blocks of life, and specifically we're going to talk about biomolecules, things like DNA, things like proteins, lipids. Genotype informs phenotype. What your molecular code is organized into relays information about what you look like. And you, as in us as a higher order organism, humans, to the star-nosed mole, to the pitcher plant. Energy is assimilated and utilized within the cell. We'll follow energy around, learn all about the Krebs cycle. Cell division drives reproduction and the growth of organisms. And then this last one, really getting you to think about how scientific information comes in many forms. You're going to get it from me in lecture, you're going to get it out of your textbook, I'm going to give you other resources in lab and lecture, and I want you to think about what does it mean when you acquire your information from something like Wikipedia, or from your textbook, or a personal blog, or a peer-reviewed journal. This is going to be one of the themes of the course we follow throughout. So let's look at these a little bit more closely. So our first theme, cells are the fundamental units of organisms. So I've got a couple of different cell types up here. Up here, this is a neuronal cell. You can see the cell body and the axon and all the little dendrites. Here, this is a fruit fly embryo that's been labeled fluorescently, and you can see all these cells that are migrating to do their specific jobs. Some might become the fly eye, and some might become the fly wing. And then here, this is a microscopic view of what muscle fibers look like. This is actually muscle fibers out of a rabbit psoas. The psoas is a deep, huge muscle that runs up the leg of the rabbit. So looking at this, you can already see the diversity in how cells are arranged, but identify that they are the fundamental units. This fruit fly embryo is composed of multiple different cell types that are going to give the functionality to this organism. This neuron has a very specific job. It's going to transmit electrochemical information throughout an organism. You can think about all these different cell types being the fundamental unit of what makes an organism work. Makes your muscle flex, makes the fruit fly develop, transmits an action potential in the brain. So we'll have some images like this out of our book, where we'll learn about all the different parts of the cell, the nucleus, and we might learn about the mitochondria, and we'll learn about what the cell membrane does, and we'll learn about what happens on a ribosome, and really gain an appreciation for how cells are organized and really are what makes an organism its higher ordered functional self. So, structure and function. They're correlated at all levels of biological organization. There is a reason that the cells are arranged the way they are. There's a reason that organisms display the characteristics that they do. Look at this glass-winged butterfly. So totally transparent wings. Allows it to blend into the environment as it's pollinating a flower and helps to hide it from predators. There is a reason that these wings are clear like this. These cells are transparent, so it can give the function of this butterfly being able to pollinate and better hide from its prey. Its predators, excuse me. This is a fiddler crab, a male fiddler crab to be specific. They've got one little claw and one huge claw. This big claw attracts the female fiddler crabs and also helps it to hold on to larger sources of food. There's a reason why the fiddler crab has the function of this big claw, and it's because it's structured to be bigger. Female crab can see it and grab bigger pieces of food. If you look down more microscopically, this is a picture of a sperm fertilizing an egg. The sperm has this big, long tail-looking thing, this flagella, so it can swim really well, make it to the egg, and then once it gets to the egg, there's a reason why the sperm head is shaped that way. It's covered in all sorts of enzyme that starts to break down the outside wall of the egg. The structure and the function of the sperm and the egg are what allow this fertilization process to take place. You can see a tick burrowing into the skin of some animal. It's got a very specific, broad, sharp head so it can get into the surface of the skin. And then when you look down, this is an electron scanning micrograph, or super high-powered microscope. You can see the actual outside membrane of a cell, right? And here's the nucleus in here. You can see little perforations even around the membrane that surrounds the nucleus. So you can get genetic information, right, can be transferred from the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Take home point. There is a reason why cells are structured the way they are, why a sperm looks the way it does, why there's pores in the nucleus. It helps for the functionality of that particular cell. And then when you even look at the organism, it's translated to, there's a reason why the fiddler crab has one big claw. There's a reason why the glass-winged butterfly has clear wings. So we'll start off the semester pretty quickly with a little bit of a chemistry review. That's chapter 2, as well as getting into the nuts and bolts of the molecules that are the building blocks of life. I've got a couple of examples up here. I've got an example of proteins and then of DNA. This is a picture of DNA, and this is DNA at another level. So if you zoom in and you think about proteins, you have billions of proteins in you as an organism, as well as lots of organisms have that many proteins. They are the major doers of the biomolecular world. They are the ones that break down our food, produce the ATP, replicate our DNA. There's numerous examples, and they go on, of all the functions of proteins. Proteins are made up of molecules, specific molecules. Amino acids are the particular monomer of proteins that are put together in a very specific bond. There's a bond between all these amino acids, a molecular bond that gives them a shape and a structure that allows them, just like the last thing, to have their functionality. So these molecules are actually what makes up all of our biological systems, things like amino acids and proteins to the actual nucleic acids in DNA. So if you think about a chromosome and all the DNA, here's a double helix that's packed up in our chromosomes. It's made of all these different elements: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, arranged in a really specific way, where we have guanosines and cytosines and thymines and adenosine bases paired, bonded together in a specific way to give the function of this biomolecule. So chemical interactions on the biological level are fundamental to understanding how these systems are working, how proteins work, how DNA works, down at the molecular level. Okay, our next theme. Genotype informs phenotype. For some of you, these may be words that you have only seen once or twice, or potentially you've never seen. Genotype. Genotype is basically referring to your genetic code. Genetic code that's what makes your eyes potentially blue. The genetic code that makes this mouse have fur and this mouse have no fur. The genetic code that gives stripes to this petunia. Phenotype refers to the physical characteristics. And these physical characteristics are completely reliant, they're determined by how the genetic code is expressed. So genotype informs phenotype in organisms. The stripes in the petunia, a blue color of your eye, a hairless mouse versus a mouse with hair. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time understanding how energy is assimilated and utilized in the cell. How does a plant get energy from the sunlight? Usable energy. How do you get energy from the pizza you ate in the calf? How do we transfer this energy, like food energy coming in this source, to energy that our cells can use on a molecular level? So we'll learn about very specific parts of the cell that do this extremely well: the chloroplast in plant cells and the mitochondria in animal cells. And we'll specifically follow along how we produce the currency of energy, ATP, in our cells, adenosine triphosphate. We'll study the Krebs cycle, glycolysis, and understand how we go from calf pizza to the energy you need to attend and pay attention to class or go to football practice or whatever it is you do. Another major theme and a topic that we'll spend quite a bit of time on in the course is understanding how cell division drives reproduction and the growth of organisms. So we're talking about mitosis and meiosis, something that some of you probably had exposure to in high school biology or potentially somewhere else. We are going to spend a lot of time making sure you understand the difference, though. What's the difference between a cell dividing by mitosis as opposed to dividing by meiosis? In mitosis, you make daughter cells. Here's the parent cell. Those two daughter cells that are genetically identical to the parent cell. This is how you make more skin cells. This is how you make more cells in the lining of your gut. This is how you replenish your liver cells. Mitosis. Meiosis is how we make daughter cells that are not genetically identical to the parent cell. So for us as humans, this is how we make our germ cells. This is sperm and egg cells, the reproductive cells of our body. All the other cells in our body are called somatic cells. So we'll learn how these processes are similar and yet distinct. How do we go from one cell to multiple cells that are either genetically identical, in the case of mitosis, or not identical? In fact, they have half the number of chromosomes in terms of meiosis. We'll look at some really cool models of this and follow around exactly what happens to the chromosomes in these two processes. And then on to our last theme for the course. It's important to me and something that I feel is a life skill as well as a professional skill to be able to interpret the information that's given to you and to interpret it with an eye of where is this coming from and what does that do to the validity of the information presented in it. So here's an example of a few different articles. One's from bodybuilding.com, one is from a peer-reviewed scientific journal, and then one is from Time magazine. All of these different sources are talking about this same finding. It is possible that there is an association between fish oils that contain these phospholipid fatty acids, and prostate cancer. This says, hold the salmon, omega-3 fatty acids linked to more cancer, more prostate cancer. Up here, what does this guy say? He says, ask the sub-guru, does fish oil cause prostate cancer? And over here, we have this very specific, large population followed along that consumes fish oils, or those fatty acids, and if they get prostate cancer. So you are going to get a different story from bodybuilding.com that sells fish oil supplements, to Time magazine for the popular media, to a very, very dense peer-reviewed scientific journal. And I want to empower you with the ability to get information from all the sources and then be able to make your own informed decisions as to what scientific information is really telling you and how you can discern the take-home points and where it's most valid and where maybe some of the arguments don't hold up. Okay, so 7 characteristics of living organisms. We're going to go over these. How do these fit into the 7 themes of the course? We just went over these 7 themes of the course. So what are the characteristics of living organisms? Here they are. This is how we define a living organism, these characteristics that all living organisms have. They're organized, there's cellular organization, there's organized and ordered complexity. They all have the ability to regulate their functions in homeostatic ways, so keeping things at a stable place, things like maybe body temperature. They have the ability to adapt evolutionarily. They respond to stimuli in their environment. The growth and development and reproduction is very specifically regulated, and they can use energy. So these are the 7 characteristics of all living organisms, and one of the things you're going to do in your questions to think about for chapter 1 is think about how our 7 themes of the course are supported by these different characteristics of living organisms. So, for example, one of the themes of our course was structure and function are integrally related in how organisms and cells are organized. Well, okay, cellular organization is one of the characteristics of a living organisms. Ordered complexity, things going from less complex maybe to more complex. That is a characteristic of living organisms. These are all structure and function related. So you can see how that theme ties into the characteristics of a living organism. So I'm very excited to meet you all. I will be on campus beginning Tuesday of next week for the labs. If you're in my lab, you need to log on to Canvas. SAP, and make sure you can access the Bio 201 page. If you cannot log into Canvas for any reason, please get help from one of your student peers, from maybe somebody over in the IT department, from your residence assistant. Make sure you can do this. I want you all to log onto Canvas, and you need to complete that assignment, the questions to think about chapter 1, and bring it with you to class on Wednesday, or if you can upload it onto Canvas, you can also do that. I look forward to meeting you all.